Thank you for tuning in to Love Dripping from the Walls. I am your host, Elizabeth Ann Cunningham, and you are listening to Season 4, Episode 2, What is a Monolith? But really, what does that mean? When we overgeneralize about a group or about people, it can become so culturally ingrained that the assumption becomes inseparable from the individual people. So that's what we're talking today. Our panel of guests are talking about their as lived experience and having these overgeneralizations put on them throughout their lives. They share about how negative stereotypes have impacted them, but even how positive stereotypes have had harmful impacts as well. Our goal in Season 4 is to talk about the experience of Black, Indigenous, people of color who are at the intersectionality of LGBTQ. So the goal in all of this is that we gain a greater connection as people. When we know what others experience and see others as humans just like ourselves with fears, dreams, concerns, aspirations, and views, we can begin to heal and love one another for our differences and our similarities. I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please consider rating, reviewing, or even sponsoring this podcast. All right, y'all. Love Dripping from the Walls has merch. It's official. You can now buy Love Dripping from the Walls hats, t-shirts, hoodies, masks even. And the best part is that when you buy Love Dripping from the Walls merch, you also support a great cause. Love Dripping from the Walls merch can be purchased through Cosa Cuore. Cosa Cuore is a company that I founded with a friend of mine, my business partner, Enrico, and we put together this company so that as people buy products that we give back to organizations. The first organization that we are giving back to is Autism Compassion Africa. So when you buy Love Dripping from the Walls merch, you also support Autism Compassion Africa. So please consider supporting Love Dripping from the Walls by buying merch and supporting Autism Compassion Africa as well. Thank you all so much. All right, thank you so much, everybody for being here. So this is episode 2, and this is about not being a monolith. So not being a monolith, we're going to talk about overgeneralizations and the effects and the harmfulness of overgeneralizations. We're going to talk about what is a monolith, what the heck is that, and so we're just going to hop right into our Season 4, Episode 2 about not being a monolith. There we go. I can speak English. This is the thing that I do. So how this episode is going to work is that, first of all, I have my lovely co-host, Jamie. Yay! Put in the applause-o-meter, Jamie Smith!
I love that. I eat it up. I totally eat it up.
She's like, stop.
And then we have our lovely people joining us today. And how the episode is going to work is that the first time that you speak, just say your name, a little bit about you, maybe why you decided to be a part of this either season or this episode specifically. And then today's fun question is, what is your favorite word?
Okay.
It's like, one of my favorite words is Twitter-pated.
Twitter-pated.
Says the coach. All right. Jamie, anything that you want to add in before we open up the conversation?
Oh, I'm super excited for this conversation. I think it's going to be really enlightening, and it's going to be a great segue into later on in the season where we start talking about microaggressions. But I just have to share my favorite word is behoove, as in like it would behoove you to listen to me. So I use that at work a lot. So
I love it. All right. So with that, what I would like to do first is just talk about, okay, what is a monolith?
Mhm.
And then go into, why that is harmful and how it affects you personally. So I looked up the actual definition. I did. I 100%.
I did too. No, that's why I'm laughing.
I totally did also.
I was like, what? I don't want to talk about that.
Literally right before I hopped on this call, I was like, what's a monolith again?
Low key, like, what is it?
That's my fault. I did it.
Blame Jamie. Well, honestly, that's one of the reasons why I had the fun question of the day be what's your favorite word? Because most of the time when I'm like, when the word monolith gets brought up, it's like, what the hell is that anyway? Okay.
Right.
So monolith is a large and impersonal political, corporate, or social structure regarded as intractably indivisible and uniform. So that's where you get the phrases of like, all Black people do this, all Asian people are like this, all women are da 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 da, all gay people, all of those blanket statements.
Mm-hmm.
And the blanket statements that not only are just like the stereotypes, but also just like those intrinsic, like these things are inseparable. Right? Like some people are like, all Black men are criminals,
mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like, for them, like that is inseparable. It's like Black men, criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And so things like, so it can be everything from just like, all gay people are fabulous to like, to like the whole spectrum, right? But it's just like those overgeneralizations that not only are just like stereotypes that people recognize, but they're stereotypes that people have as inseparable from that thing or person or group.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And that's absolutely what I thought I was coming into when we were talking about this, because a lot of times, it's not so much that you have the stereotype piece, which we kind of know and not love, but we're familiar with. But then, for people who step outside of the paradigm, so if you happen to be a Black person who is successful, it is seen as being despite the Blackness, as opposed to the Blackness contributing to it. Or, if you are an Asian woman who is very outspoken, like, wow, you must not really be Asian because you are like this. It's like it's a narrowing of the identity, imposed externally. So that you can't be a different person than what you claim, what you appear to be, in society's eyes. So that's what we want to talk about today. Like, how are you different? How are you different within your identity? What are the things, how does that impact your day-to-day life? And then what are the things that you wish people would know about, the specific flavor of LGBTQ you are, the specific flavor of Black or Asian or Latino that you are, that sort of thing. What do you wish people knew?
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you just talk about that, like, first of all, my name is V. I'm a herbalist, self-care person. I just launched my Patreon. If you follow me on Instagram, I launched a Patreon and also like told people about this workshop that I've been putting together, which for me, just being able to put it out there and tell people, I'm like, I did it. Nothing becomes of it. I at least did that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So yeah, that's really exciting. My favorite word is murmur.
Okay. I love it.
I just think that's the funniest word. Murmur. Murmured.
It's the way you say it. It's the best.
No, it's like heart murmur or like murmur.
Okay, that, and then you said that, and now I'm like, is that my favorite word?
I just wasn't sure if that's what you were saying. Like, I was like, what?
You're right. You're absolutely right.
It's a good word. It's a good word.
It's a good word, and it's a good word because murmur also like sounds like the definition of it.
Totally.
Like, murmur is a murmur.
It's a murmur. Yeah. But what I was gonna say was that brought up for me, and that when people see me, they just automatically see like breasts, and they're like, "Woman." Oh, you're a woman? That must mean you're a lesbian. And I'm like, please don't call me that. That is not what I identify as. And it's not even that it's like it hurts me like physically. Well, emotionally, it's just hard. It just it's uncomfortable. And then you're like, oh, it's just an uncomfortable situation. And you're like, wow, I wish people wouldn't just like shove me into that box. Right. You just see breasts and you're like, woman, lesbian.
Exactly.
My name is Ra, and I identify as a lesbian, but I guess I also say gay. I'm not with men, and so basically I have to be like, okay, I like girls, and so my favorite word. It's hard. I probably have a bunch, but the one that came to my head right before you said behoove is hence, because like I'll just be like, like making a point, and then I'm just like, hence, thus, therefore, that's why Jasmine is, hands down the best princess of all time, blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, also, Jasmine just came to my head. I'm not trying to like start fights. If y'all like Ariel and other people, like, it's okay. I'm not trying to like be like, this is what it is. I was just trying to make sense in a sentence. But anyway, yeah, like my whole life have been placed in boxes. Most of a good portion of my life, it was the black box. But then when I was, went to Catholic high school, all these things, struggling with my sexuality, pretty much a good portion of my life, and then decided to finally come out. I was like, I want to be in that box, because I went from like a self-hating phase to like, oh yeah, no, I'm gay, like I'm gay, like, and then it was like, okay, like dial it back now a little bit, because like you a little bit, like you pushing up on it, and so it's like it's finding that healthy balance. I'd say as far as like monoliths and like generalizations, my whole life I've always been told that I don't talk Black, and like, or okay, you pretty smart, like for a Black girl, like, or like, oh, you mixed though, so you got that like light skin privilege. Like, oh, okay, good to know that I have that. I was not aware, like, So I've gone through a lot of that, and I'd say the first thing that came to mind for me though was the more like, you're pretty educated for a Black girl.
Oh yeah.
So where I'm like, okay, so let's unpack that, but I don't want to unpack that.
Right. Keep that in your little bag. Stuff
that right down in your sack and keep it there. Yeah.
I'm Poppy, and I grew up in Taiwan, and then I came to the United States like 8 years ago for college and work. And since I was my favorite word, I really can't think of one, but right now it's a word, also a name. It's my fiance's name, Elon. It is the most beautiful name I have ever heard of. So hence it is my favorite word. Yes.
Well played.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it is a really tough topic in my opinion, because we've seen all kinds of monoliths around the world. And whenever we see it, we kind of, reflect ourselves onto it, because it is so close to our lives, ourselves. So since I was young, in Taiwan, all my classmates will give me all kinds of masculine nicknames because I look like a dyke. I'm a lesbian, tomboy. And I was not okay with that, but I just, laugh it off and think, okay, maybe it's a compliment, because, boys like to play with me. They don't think I'm a girlish girl. That's maybe some kind of validation or something. But then I still feel, really uncomfortable because I love being a female. I'm proud of being a female. I think there are certain things that, women can do, men cannot do. Yeah. And then until I come to the United States, people will, see I'm an Asian and they will ask me, do you eat dog? And then I was like, no, not. I mean, there's only a small population of Chinese, Korean people eat dog, but not me. And people will assume, oh, you must be smart. You are an Asian. Okay. I mean, I'm smart in different things, but maybe, not that smart type. Yeah. And, whenever we go, we receive a lot of messages and signals to remind us that we have to choose a box. We have to belong to something.
Yeah.
And when I told my best friend that I also dated men in the past, they were all surprised. They think I'm just a, really, really dyke that I only date women. But no, I also dated men. And then it turned out that I realized I don't like men at all. So
I mean,
That's it, honey.
Snaps to that.
I mean, I can do it.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it.
Yeah, but not anymore.
Good for you because I cannot. No, snaps to that.
And then until now, I still don't know if I should introduce myself as a lesbian or a queer because although I can only love women, I also dated men in the past. So how should I call myself? So it's really,
however the hell you want to call yourself.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Queer, whatever you want.
Yeah. That really resonates, puppy, because that's exactly how I feel. No hatred or animosity towards people who identify as lesbian. It's just I don't identify as that. And it should always be about the person, right? And what feels most comfortable for them. And being shoved into that box made me feel I have to own that identity, even though it felt not right and it felt uncomfortable. And when you're exploring your gender, sexuality, and you're trying to figure out exactly how you identify, and people just keep sticking you into a place, and you're like, it doesn't feel right, but everyone says I am, so I guess that's what I am. They said I was lesbian, so I guess that's what I am.
Yeah. People are
and it just
constantly
stops you from really knowing exactly who you really are, and it just makes the journey even harder because you're so confused. I spent so many years so confused. I'm I don't get it. I keep telling people I'm this, but it doesn't feel right to me. So yeah.
And there were times when I felt guilty to date, men or all people I have dated men. I always feel ashamed and guilty. But then I realized, no, I should not. It's just me wanting to, try things out. And I think it is a healthy way to really understand myself and my preference. Yeah. Why should I, feel ashamed and guilty?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or people miss, or they put my fiance in that box all the time. She's identifies as bisexual, and so when they see us out, they're constantly like, "Oh, you lesbians," or "Oh, you gays," or whatever. And I tell my friends all the time, actually, I know she's bisexual. And when we first started dating, at first I saw that she was quick to correct, but then I thought too in my head, if someone had labeled me and said "Oh, you're bisexual," I'd be like, no, I'm not. No, I'm a lesbian. I'm queer. Get it right. And so it's no, it's the same way. No, she says she's bisexual, so she's bisexual. There's no, you don't need to put her in any other box.
It's not true. And I mean, do you ever? I know I feel this being bisexual. I always find that there, at least if I'm dating a woman, or if I'm around other, other folks that are LGBTQ, they'll always say, oh, you're not really because you date guys, kind of similar to what Puppy has experienced, and so do you feel that there is a way within the LGBTQ community that we expect people to act? If you are lesbian, if you are queer, if you are bi, if you are, trans, that sort of way, like, you must be in this square, in this box here. And if you deviate, then you're not part of us. You're not one of us.
Oh, absolutely. That was a huge thing when I was first coming out, because I was like, when I first came out, I came out as bisexual, which was like honest and true. And then everyone placed me in being a lesbian. But when I would tell people that I was bisexual, they're like, yeah, you're halfway out of the closet. And I'm like, what is that? What does that even mean? What is that? I mean, I feel like, I don't know if everyone's, but I feel like if you're bisexual or you've claimed that at some time in your life, people have maybe told you like, oh, you're halfway out of the closet. I'm like, okay, I'm halfway. Cool. Can't wait till I'm all the way out.
Yeah. Can't wait till I'm all the way out.
Working my way out.
I was actually the opposite, where I remember I was easing my way, which it's like I was scared to go all the way, whatever. But I was scared to just say, I'm gay, I'm a lesbian. And so for the short amount of time when I came out, I remember telling one of my college roommates in a drive-thru at Wendy's, somehow just like got the courage to say it between my order and hers, like before we get to that next window. And it was just like, yeah, I have the spicy chicken, home style grill, blah, blah, blah. And then like, we're about to drive up and I'm just like, I think I'm bi. And she's like, and to this day, I'm still wondering like, okay, it wasn't her place to say this, but at the same time, she was right. So she's like, oh no, honey, you're gay. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? She's like, you're gay. But I'm so glad you told me. So I remember I was just like, excuse me? Like, how dare her? Blah, blah, blah. And then like I go home and I was like, she's right though. Like, why couldn't I say it? Why couldn't I say I was gay?
Oh my God.
That's so cute.
Well, and I think that one of the things that y'all are pointing to is just the stereotypes that make it harder, right? Where it's just like, even inside of the, LGBTQ community, where even when you're trying to come out in that way and like navigate that world, and like, it's already hard enough, just like saying who you are. And that even inside of the community that is, quote unquote, supposed to be your community, or like, quote unquote, supposed to accept you, that it's like, even in that, it's still like, oh, well, you're actually this, right? Yeah. And like not having that room to say exactly who you are, and that it's really okay that that you can that you can change and shift. Your sexuality is fluid, right? Like, I've gone all the way from like, well, that's a totally different story. But like, when I was in college, I would call myself straight-ish. I mean, that's straight-ish. Like,
yes.
before blackish. I like
blackish. Before was cool.
Yeah, we were straight-ish.
Yeah.
Straight-ish. I don't even know. Whatever. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's a totally different story. But like, going from there all the way to like, oh well, like, I'm pansexual, and like, or this or whatever, like whatever that identity is that I'm claiming, but having it be okay that other people can accept you for whatever it is that you're like claiming right now, and like hear you, like being the ability to be heard. And I think that with all of these stereotypes and like boxes that people put us in, like, that's one of the dangers, is like, there's no ability to be heard. Right? There's no discussion around it. Like, your friend at Wendy's was like, no, you're gay. Like, it just like shuts down conversation and like exploration and discovery and like, all of that. So yeah. And I guess like my question, like leading into another question, which is like, inside of being either a person of color or LGBTQ or both, like the combination of both of those things, where do you see that has, like, people putting you in those boxes has actually held you back in some way?
I'm like, damn, let me look back on my journey.
Right. It's like all of the stuff kind of crashes in and stuff like that. Yeah, I had a person tell me one time that, I think we were talking about Black Lives Matter and why police brutality is an important issue. And, this is a white person. And they said, but you make $200,000 a year. It doesn't impact you, does it? And it's kind of like,
it doesn't.
I was like, quick, like his brain is kind of locked up because it's like, well, what does money have to do with it? B, does that mean that I've still never experienced racism or sexism or homophobia or whatever, and 3, like, do you think that money cures it all? Like, does Oprah never experience racism or sexism, that sort of thing. And what it kind of showed me was like, okay, it's almost like, discrimination and not being allowed to be yourself, like, has some sort of expiration date. Once you reach a level of success, you're supposed to not have to deal with those things anymore. It's very strange to kind of toe that line, to say, yeah, I have a lot of privilege. I have a lot of good things going on in my life. But that doesn't mean, A, that I don't work for other people's liberation. And B, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to still experience that at some point. Do you ever feel that people are like, oh, well, you're in a relatively good position. Why do you care about these things? Why do you want to talk about these things? Does that ever come across your particular corner of the world?
I mean, I just get it more. I get it more, not even about what my profession is. It's just more like, why do you care? You're light skinned. I get more that like, I get more that like, you're not fully Black, so you're okay. Like you're not gonna experience what we experience, that kind of thing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think I've ever really had like my professional background be like, oh, well, you make more. Although that's definitely a thing, and I know what I've heard some of my successful, even one of my successful people that I know is a PhD doctor making lots of money, but walking down the street, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
one thing. Skin color. And and Michael Strahan, the former football player, and I was on Good Morning America a couple weeks ago. I'd seen a story where he was saying he was pulled over and racially profiled, and then they got up to the window and the cop recognized him and then had his hand on his weapon and then said, oh, sorry, like, my bad, I'm a huge fan, like, blah blah blah. And Michael was like, no, you just profiled me. Like, all you saw was a Black man driving a car. Like, can we talk about that? Like,
Yeah.
So no, I don't think money fixes it, like you said.
Yeah.
Or lets you escape.
Right.
But also, I think erases the fact that, like, it's not like you were born and you just had like $200,000. Like, you worked for it, and it like erases like your hard work and the way that you like build the life that you have. And it's like, oh, I was just like born with this like wealth. Like, no, I worked my ass off for it.
And the same thing for relationships. Like, oh, you're in a good relationship. Why would you think that it's so hard to meet somebody? Or hey, you seem to be secure in your identity. Why are you so worried about other people? Why are you so worried about other people dealing with this sort of thing? And that's one of the things why I wanted to do this with Elizabeth, because Elizabeth has a platform. She does, if she wanted to, she could be like, this ain't my thing. I'm just going to talk about like, lavender and all kinds of cool stuff, right?
I do love lavender.
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 Pumpkin spice lattes and lavender.
Right. So, give me some Uggs and some pumpkin spice lattes. I'm good.
Some lavender, y'all.
Right. But because she cares about these sorts of things, she's extending this platform. And so, that's one of the things that, I think that folks don't even really think about when they make these generalizations. Like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can be successful or be in a good position in our individual lives and still give a damn about other people in their lives and want to elevate them and make sure that they have platforms to be able to be heard and to be safe in their identities. And that's one of the things that I think that being in that monolith, being in that label kind of takes from us a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing that I would love to ask you guys is, what is a weird thing about you individually that people are like, but you're Black or you're gay or you're, but I'll give you one. At work, I love Jeff Buckley, the singer from the 90s, right? I have him, so Lover, You Should Have Come Over. I have the chorus to that as my ringtone. Oh, lover, right? Should have come over. All right, I can sing it, but so I wait for the concert. So I'm at work and I'm in a one-on-one meeting, and I forget to mute my phone, and somebody calls me, and of course he's singing, and the Latina girl in front of me, she says, "Oh, that's Jeff Buckley. I never thought you would listen to Jeff Buckley." And I'm just like, and you was real heavy. So, I'm kind of like, what does the you mean? And she's like, "Oh, well, and she starts backpedaling. But I'm like, but literally, it could be because Black, because female. Well, it could be because female, because lots of girls like Jeff Buckley. And I'm up here doing all this math. I'm like having all the, hypothesis and all that stuff floating around me, because I'm like, which one? And while she's dancing, it's just kind of like, I can't even have a conversation with you anymore, because I already know what you think of whatever the you is, whatever the me is here. Do you have that? Do you have those types of experiences? And what is the you that they usually kind of index on if somebody ever does that to you?
First thing that comes to mind for me was also music. I for years struggled with owning the fact that I like country music. I would tiptoe around the fact, and I'd be like, "Oh, I like country pop. Like, I don't like country music, but I like country pop." So like, if it's like on the pop music stations, like I could get down with some Dan and Shay, or like I'm like, "Oh, well, and then they'd be like, "Okay, but," and I'm like, "No, that's too country." And then, so like over the years, and let's be real, I mean, there are still some country songs out there where I'll just flat out be like, "Next." Like, wow. But for the most part, I struggled with like legit being like a closeted country fan. And so a couple of times at work, like I will sometimes I have all types of, I'm very eclectic. Like, I mean, I literally could be listening to Tupac, and then the next song could be Johnny Cash. Yep. So like, it's very across the board. But my headphones, I had like closed my laptop, and sometimes the music will play out loud if I like disconnect my headphones. So I did that at work one time. Same thing. And the girl was like, oh, but you listen to that country? Like, right. And I was just like, so what were you expecting? Like, did you think I was going to just be like blasting NWA? Or, and she's just like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. I was like, so then what did you mean? And she's just like, well, I just wasn't sure if like, and then just couldn't even come up with it. Like a thing. And I was like, great, now I've made you uncomfortable, and now I'm the dick that's called you out. Yeah. So yeah, that, and then also this one a little bit more hurtful, but like college degree. I have a college degree. Mm-hmm. And so like sometimes, I'd be like, oh, I got my degree in hospitality. It'd be like, oh, you have a degree. Like, sure do. Sure do. You'd be surprised people. Yeah. It's on paper and everything. Didn't come from my printer either. Sure do.
Totally. Exactly. I think in Asian culture there are similar things, like, when you don't go to a grad school right after undergrad, people will think, you're not, pursuing your future. Mm-hmm. And then it's an Asian thing. Like, most Asian parents want their kids, to get master's degree or even PhD before they have, work experience. But then it's really frustrating, because I want to work instead of keep studying for something I'm not sure if I would like for a long period of time, and waste all that money.
Yeah. Something on the other side of like education is people assume, because I'm Asian, I'm Filipino, and then making like generalizations. They just like see an Asian and they're like, and I Filipinos don't use chopsticks. That's just like not a thing that's in Filipino culture. But because I'm Asian, I think everyone just assumes like, oh, Asians use chopsticks. And I'm not good with chopsticks. I'm terrible at it. And like people will see and they're like, oh my God, why can't, like, you're Asian. Why can't you use chopsticks?
Oh my God.
I was like, I'm Filipino. I don't use chopsticks. And like people will always, I've had friends that have like made me feel really like shameful because I don't know like how to like use I'm like not skilled at using chopsticks. And they're like, what is wrong with you? You're Asian. I'm like, not that kind of Asian. A different kind.
It's wild that happens. Like,
yes. And it's like, why do I have to feel guilty about something that's not in my culture?
Like, why are you yelling at me?
Yeah.
Like, why is this happening?
Dinner once, and this, like, my friend, like, her partner was just shaming me. And I was like, do you know anything about Asia? We're not all the same.
That's like with Jamie. I think I've talked to Jamie about this, about the watermelon.
Yeah,
I can't stand watermelon. Like, I don't like it. I don't like the flavor. I don't like melon. I don't like cantaloupe. I don't like anything that's cucumber. Anything that has like a weird aftertaste. Mm-hmm. So I don't really mess with watermelon. And like, every time it's like, oh, you don't like watermelon. I'm like, no, I don't like watermelon. It's the same with like the chopsticks where you're just like, why are we making this a conversation? Like,
why is this a thing?
Like, I don't have watermelon on my plate. You do. Yeah. Like, do you eat the watermelon? You know what I mean? It's just like, why is this a thing? Kool-Aid, fried chicken, all of that. Stereotypes, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Can I say one story about watermelon? Yeah. I used to work at this like barbecue restaurant called Lucille's. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. And I remember like it was a bunch of white people and there was one black guy. Mm-hmm. And the white people, apparently this is a thing they do to him, this poor guy. They will order watermelon and they will specifically make the waiter like give it to the black guy. And they laughed. They were all laughing and I was like, this is terrible.
You're like, what the hell? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's such a thing.
Yeah. That was
like, oh.
My brain just broke. Like, are you... And he stayed there, and what?
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, he must have felt uncomfortable, like, but he was laughing. I'm sure. Like, this was back in like 2008.
Yeah.
A different time.
This was back when like 2008.
2008, right?
White supremacists were still around, but they weren't. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
White supremacists were still around, but they just weren't in office.
Yeah. Like, they were lurking. They just weren't like out in the open about it.
No, I've been force-fed watermelon before, like or not like but like just pushed on so much to the point where one of my ex's mother was so incredibly inappropriate and racist, and with just these tiny little things, and we're not talking like I want you dead racist or like
right.
But just very like ignorant, like, wow, you are just like blowing my mind little things. And every time I'd be over there, there'd be a big ass watermelon in the sink, and she'd be like, I have some watermelon for you. And I'd be like, this is the fourth time I've told you that I don't like watermelon.
Yeah.
And then like she'd be like, oh well, okay, well, can I get you any like a snack that like what will you eat then?
Oh my God.
It's like, like,
I'm confused here. So what? I need to be educated on this. Why?
Oh, Jamie could probably. I feel like she's very intellectual, and it would behoove you to listen to her to talk about this.
It would behoove you to listen to Jamie.
Hence, here is Jamie.
So shortly after the Civil War and Reconstruction, of course, the enslaved folks were freed. Black folks were freed, but there is still kind of it was overt, but it wasn't governmental or legal, ways of intimidating Black people, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of there ways were so-called minstrel shows and so-called variety shows that depicted Black people in one particular way or not. And so one of those things that was done, this is one of the reasons why blackface is such an issue, right? What it was usually white people who would paint themselves Black, you know, and then, you know, depict Black people as like lazy or, you know, or shiftless or, you know, just not productive, you know, and as a result, you know, this served to, you know, to make white people think that Black people were lazy, wouldn't hire them, you know, or, you know, would think that they were prone to kind of, you know, shirk off their work, you know, and that sort of thing. And one of the caricatures that came out from it was called the Pickaninny, which is a little Black child with usually like the barrettes and very, very matted hair. I don't know if any of you guys are watching the show Lovecraft Country right now, but there is an episode where they have like it's like a horror version of like American Gothic, African American style. It's the best show on television right now. But they had in one of their episodes, they had these pickaninnies and they had like all the, you know, sharp teeth and all sorts. It was very hard show, but that's what I'm talking about. And they would always depict these pickaninnies as being on the porch, lounging around, eating watermelon and fried chicken, because apparently that's what Black people do. And so it has been such a pervasive and enduring, you know, stereotype that, you know, and I mean, throughout the years, if somebody wants to intimidate a Black person, they try and force watermelon on them, or, you know, they shove some fried chicken in front of them, or they hang nooses and those types of things. So it's not that it's not offensive on its face, because plenty of Black people like watermelon. I love watermelon. You know, I'll tear up some fried chicken in front of you, you know, and not care. But the thing about it is that it always makes I think it makes Black people feel self-conscious, especially eating it in front of white people, because that's just fulfilling the stereotype, you know, that sort of thing. It's kind of, you know, and so when you say, when people say eating watermelon and fried chicken, my parents and my sister will not eat it in front of white people. Just won't do it, you know. And it's just one of those things where it's like, you have to think about that before you go eat some delicious fried chicken or some delicious watermelon or something like that. You have to kind of like, oh man, are they going to think that I'm like one of those pickaninnies back in the day because I'm eating this? And you know, it's kind of a bummer. You know, you can't even have a good time because you're thinking about this. And so that's why I was so horrified at Dee's story, because I'm like, okay, I have a lot of white friends, but I don't have any white friends that would do that to me. And if they did, we wouldn't be friends. You know,
exactly.
So, you know, I'm wondering, okay, what is it about him? And that might be me putting him in my own box, because I don't get it.
Sure.
You know, right? But I'm like,
well, and I'm sure he I don't want to speak for him either, because I literally don't know him. But I bet he's not friends with those people now.
Right.
He's like, it's 2020. I look back. Hell no.
He's like, what the hell?
He's like, how did I let that happen?
Yeah, exactly. And so well said, Jamie. That's why I'm glad that it did behoove all of us for you to say it just like that.
That was more than a murmur.
And like, that was so well said. But also, it reminds me of back in the day when like I had certain friends that, and when I say friends, I'm using the term loosely. I have an amazing support system now, and like actual friends who are like my foundation, right? But then you use the term friend. So I had some friends back in the day that would like, you know, how come everything has to be about race? And like, but it's like in that situation right there, if people don't know the origin and root of that story,
right.
It's like you literally just going out to eat chicken, but you're like, but it has to be about race. It's like literally, I can't eat this chicken in front of you without me stressing out, thinking that I'm perpetuating the stereotype.
Right.
So it really just comes down to, it's literally as simple as fried chicken and watermelon. And like, see, and like, and Puppy was like, I'm not sure. And like, I'm glad you asked, but it's like, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And I remember, like you said, the origins of blackface. I remember I had to explain blackface to my mother-in-law, and like truly in detail. Yeah. And truly saying like, actually, it's not just that. Right. It's this. And like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, you know, not just in your face. Like it resonates with something.
Right. That's the craziness about being in 2020, and being so far away from it. You want to say you've gotten past it, but then there's still people that do it.
Yeah, every time. This year.
I mean, there's still people that are doing yellow face, like, and just kind of like, what? This is, when, what's his name? Because I will not say his name on this podcast, and Sully it, says the China virus. It's like, are you serious right now? It is a virus that happened to strike all these different places. Nobody called swine flu the American virus because it shows it originated here. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, there is a context to this. It's not just the word. It's not just the action. It's not just that person. There is context. And Ta-Nehisi Coates says, words mean nothing without context. And so that's what, that's what I feel like we're always talking about here, especially throughout this entire season. It's all about context.
Absolutely. Totally.
I asked the question because it really explains, how monolith come to shape. It's constant, formation of media or stereotypes. And
Yeah. And ingrained in you. Just like ingrained in you, like for your birth, since your birth to the point where people can't get past it. They see people who are Black and you tell them you don't like watermelon. They're like, what? I have seen Black people and they all eat watermelon.
Exactly. Right. It's like, so what are you trying to pull? I'm just trying to say I don't like watermelon.
I go to an Asian restaurant and I ask for a fork and they're like, what?
Exactly.
I was like, please give me a fork.
I don't want to eat this with just my hands.
I can't use these chopsticks. I need a fork.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's wild, So.
And I do think monoliths I think they're dangerous in that for me at least, they've just caused me to doubt who I am. I just think it holds us back from our own individual growth and exploration because we just get bogged down by other people's perception of us, and it stops us from figuring out who we are on our own terms.
Absolutely. I know we've got 5 minutes left. I would love to ask you all. I was having a conversation with one of my husbands. They're married to each other. They're not married to me, but I call them my husband. And we were talking about, about labels, right? One of them, Michael, he's my heart. He's like, I'm the MVP, most valuable position. There's no such thing as a label here. I do what I want, who I want, when I want, So I'm not going to call myself gay or bisexual or anything. I'm just Michael and I date who I want. Do you think that there is, I know that we've had labels because it helps to kind of create our identity. Do you feel like it's passé or do you still feel like it's useful at this point?
I feel like it's useful in situations, but I also feel like, I wish that I could be as confident as Michael and just be like, I'm a human being.
Right.
I date what I want, who I want, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Good on him.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to get there. I'm not there yet. I'm not trying to get there.
I feel like so much of who I am was going to a Catholic high school and in general and was so every day just it's a sin. It's not. And so when you finally identify and own it, it's you want to you grab that label and you're just oh no, I want to be proud of. I'm Black and I'm proud. That kind of But yeah, I mean, I feel like if it wasn't a big deal and people didn't get so offended, then we probably wouldn't really need to hold on to our labels. But for me, I feel like I kind of need the label to pride myself on how proud I am as a Black queer woman.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I feel that too. I own my queerness and I stand tall in that. And I feel like, I need that too. Because you talk about how do we give people the flavor of queer that we are. And by telling them exactly who the hell I am. I'm queer, okay? Please do not call me a lesbian. Not that I don't like lesbians. I love them. That's just not me.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Awesome.
think we still like need labels to help, not to distinguish us from others, but to educate others about, there are many more diverse group and many more opportunities, and you can be anything you want. So we need those labels to show them. But if we are all, everyone is so open-minded and we can all be who we want to be, then that day we don't need labels anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah.
I love it. That's kind of what I was feeling too. I'm not quite where he is yet either, but I would love to get to that point.
Yeah, I'd love to get there too. And I think it's not just us as like queer people doing the work, right? It's other people too.
Yeah.
We got to have everybody doing the work.
Everybody, girl. Everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah. And on that note, like, what do you see is needed? Like, if you were to be asked the question, what do you need? Like, even like on an individual level, like, what do you need from other people?
To be open-minded.
Yeah.
And to
listen.
Yeah. Listen. Yeah. Be flexible.
Ask questions like Puppy did.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Puppy could have easily been like, not said anything, and then Googled, and then gone down some weird rabbit hole, and then been like, oh, well, I don't really know. And then it just keeps going, and it goes to the next person, and it goes to the next person, and before you know it, everyone's out here still forcing watermelon on people. And you're just like, fuck, it won't stop. Educate, have open dialogues, be able to listen, and also be able to like just have the open dialogue and know that you're probably going to make a mistake. I'm going to make a mistake. We can both talk about it, like, that kind of, but not defensive. Yeah. Like, not that like, it's like, just talk it out. And if until we get across the root of the problem, I will say real quick, we had for work, Trevor Noah actually was part of our diversity summit. And so he spoke and it was amazing. But he had this little section where he was talking about how if you go to he said that the difference between South Africa and America is that in South Africa, they're just blatant about it. Like, they're racist. And they're just like, you aren't going to get this house because you're Black. And people are like, oh, well, thank you for letting me know on my way. Right. As opposed to like in America where it's like, if you work hard, you can get this house, you can do whatever you want. But like in the sense of things, it's not the case. And so he was saying, like, when we go to doctors, if you find out you have lung cancer, the doctor's not like, you're an idiot, you were smoking cigarettes, you have lung cancer, bye-bye. It's like, no, the doctor's literally just like, you have lung cancer, here are the things that you need. We're going to try to treat it this way, and we're going to try to fix it, and that's how I'm going to help you. Yeah. And they just go down to the root of the problem. They don't like, make shame people in for certain things. Like, they truly get to the root and they ask and they say, like, this is how we're going to fix it. And I think until we can have those discussions and truly just talk about it and educate people the way that you just did with that beautiful, whatever it was that you did. It was so good. I was like, oh my God, it was so like well spoken. I was just like, yes. I don't think we're gonna move that needle much until people can actually open up their ears and actually listen.
Yeah, I totally agree. We really need people to be open-minded, willing to learn and ask questions. But for those who don't have, open-minded, just shut up.
Yes, and that too. We all be like, spend your time on them. Just like they're always going to.
I mean, not everyone can. Yeah, not everyone have the ability to learn to be open-minded, and for those, be quiet.
That's real. That's real.
Well, you just shut up, man. Beautiful quote.
That's beautiful. And Puppy, first of all, thank you for asking that question.
Yeah.
Jamie, thank you for answering that question. I'm just going to speak to that for a second because I learned a lot in you sharing that. I was like, oh shit, like I didn't even actually know that. Like I didn't know that. And like I knew that it, I was like, okay, stereotypes originate from somewhere. And the other thing is that I didn't know the term pickaninny came from that.
Yes.
Like, I didn't actually know. This is something like on my journey of like learning about race and like where I have like ingrained racism in myself and I don't even know is like in terms like that. Like, I really, I'm Midwest and like my mom's family is from the South and stuff like that. And so the term pickaninny really does mean like someone who's like lazy and stupid. Like, that's how people use it. And I had no idea that it was like racially charged.
Yeah,
right?
It's like if you call somebody some black kid a pickaninny, you're gonna have problems with their parents. So,
yeah, and
you're gonna catch those hands.
Right.
Right. Right. And I honestly didn't know that. I did not know that term was racially charged at all. And I think that just goes back to the question of like inside of listening and in asking a question, not being defensive about the question that you ask. Don't argue with their answer. Right? I think that's a big, like, that's one of my takeaways from all of your shares today. It's like, if you ask someone a question about their identity, about, something about them, about, whatever, like, V with the fork. But honestly, like, and especially like if someone had asked that question, they're like, oh, well, I've used the term pickaninny before, but I didn't mean it. It's like, okay, don't be defensive about it. Stop, just apologize.
Now you know.
Yeah, now you know. Yeah. Apologize. Stop using the terms. Like, okay, like I'm getting from this that I'm never going to use that term ever again. I'm like, like, I did not know that.
And then if you use the term, and then if you continue to use the term out after you know, it's like, you have it's like, that's messed up. Like, you now know.
Right, exactly. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you all so much. Puppy, B, Rod, Jamie, thank you so much for
like, damn, Jamie's the only one that got the heart though. I see. I was like, oh,
community heart.
Make a mistake, okay?
Be so honest like that. It's like, Jamie.
I meant that for everybody.
I'm sharing the heart. Everybody gets the heart. Yeah.
Okay, did I teach y'all the love dripping from the walls motion? Did I teach it to all of you?
I think you did.
Okay, I'll say V knows it. Okay, so you do heart, so love, and then you swoosh it out, and then you drip it down the.
Ooh, like spirit fingers.
Wow.
Spirit fingers. These aren't spirit fingers. These are spirit fingers.
But seriously, thank you all. Yes. But seriously, thank you all so much for this chat today. I appreciate all of you, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for all of the truth. Like, just thank you for showing up and being your authentic self, and really just saying like how things are for you. And I really, really appreciate that. Any closing statements from anyone?
I just want to thank all of the three of you for being with us on this journey. This is a great conversation, and I'm so happy to know the three of you, and you too, Elizabeth. You're okay, but
you're okay,
right? But I'm just happy to know you stellar human beings. So thank you so much for your time and your effort and your work.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for just
for like
letting it be.
Yeah. For creating the space,
for educating me. Yeah, and thank you all for sharing. That like valuable information and all that.
Yay.
If these were live, I'd be like, vote! Please go vote!
Oh yeah.
Sure. By the time they get published, we might have a new. I'm not even gonna talk about it. Let's do it. Like, I'm not even gonna do it. Just gotta stretch my back.
Oh yeah.
But regardless of when these get aired, just go fucking vote. That's all.
Yeah, vote. Absolutely vote.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go do it.
All right, I'm gonna go do it. I gotta go.
See, I'm glad I did it then. Convince one person.
I love it.